Hey, don't you just hate it when a story pivots and completely takes things in an entirely different direction in a way you never saw coming? Well, anime is no stranger to this. We've had our fair share of series that start out strong, have a lot of great things going, only for them to shoot themselves in the foot as they bring in new story elements that makes the series downright unwatchable. Darling in the Franxx, Wonder Egg Priority, Ninja Kamui. If I was to list them all, we'd be here all day. Rarely do we ever get stories that are able to make such drastic changes and still work. But in the off chance that we do, we get something like Rideback, the racing anime that starts us as a girl discovering newfound passion for a new sport before turning into a government conspiracy filled with terrorism and explosions. But how exactly does it all lead to that? Well, get comfy as we uncover it all in the story of Rideback. In the year 2025, would you look at that? The world was completely taken over by a group called the Global Government Plan, GGP for short, who went against all the global superpowers and somehow came out victorious thanks to the new weaponry they had developed, which quickly turned the tide in their favor. With them basically taking over the world, it led to a constant cycle of violence as those who didn't agree with them took up arms to fight against them, but were never successful. The GGP had a firm grip on the world and shaped it however they saw fit. But none of that mattered to our main character, Rin Ogata, an up-and-coming ballet dancer following in the steps of her mother. She was a girl who was on track to making it big in the world of ballet, until one day, during her first ever lead role, she stretched a bit too far, tore a ligament, and suffered an injury that would cause her to never dance again. And just like that, the world she knew was over. Fast forward a year and Rin has now made it into college, along with her best friend and roommate, Shoko. Life had been pretty normal for Rin since then, but that all changes when she catches a glimpse of a man heading out on an unfamiliar vehicle. Curious, while also trying to take shelter from the rain, she wanders into the warehouse the man emerged from. That is when she comes across a rather strange but somewhat alluring motorcycle-looking vehicle, as well as a guy who assumes she's here to join the club. The vehicle in front of her is called a Rideback. It's basically a motorcycle with arms that can move in all three dimensions, being able to switch between a motorcycle mode and a bipedal mode. It's also equipped with an AI that can hear basic commands as well as make the optimal decisions when riding. I have to say, I love the design of these things. Their sleek and at the same time clunky design makes them feel a lot more grounded in reality. They don't feel too sci-fi, but instead feel like actual vehicles that could exist in the real world with a lot of applications to be had too. But they'd cost an arm and a leg though. This rideback in particular is called the Fuego Type L, and Rin is urged to hop on it for a quick tutorial. The guy, whose name is Haruki, gives her a rundown of the controls and movement, and Rin seems to be getting a hang of things, until things suddenly go out of control with her and Fuego zooming off. Seeing as this is her first time on the vehicle, she pretty much has to learn all about it on the go while trying not to crash. But surprisingly enough, while things are pretty hectic for her at that moment, she's able to comfortably get a hang of riding and is actually enjoying herself. But still can't figure out how to stop, so she kind of stumbles around through campus. This catches the attention of another Rideback club member, Tamayo, as well as the man from before who tries to swoop in to help her stop. Turns out there was a malfunction in the Rideback's OS that was making things difficult, and this guy is able to fix it on the go just before she falls off a cliff. But Rin, in the heat of the moment, doesn't hit the brakes. Instead, she leaps forth over the edge, giving us a very beautiful scene. And in that moment, Rin's heart is set ablaze, experiencing a new type of freedom, introducing her to a whole new world. For a first episode, it was a pretty good one. Rin's introduction and struggle is one that anyone who has dealt with losing something they're passionate about can find relatable. We basically meet her at her lowest point. Sure, life has been going well for her, getting into college and becoming roommates with her best friend, smiling through it all. We never get a sense that she's truly happy. There is just this air of melancholy around her, and we see these moments slip through the cracks from time to time. It's clear to see what the setup for her character arc is going to be. However, while you may think you're able to predict where her character is going, the anime doesn't quite follow that direction, and I have to say, it was for the better. Rin and her journey are the strongest parts about the anime. The rest of the supporting cast don't really leave all that much of an impression on you. I also have to give credit to the animation. It oozes that early 2010s vibe really well. Madhouse definitely brought their A-game to this anime. Even the CGI used for the Ridebacks came out really well and were in no way jarring to look at, even when you had the 2D characters on them. Coupled with some pretty good camera work, the anime is able to pull off some really cool looking fast-paced action sequences. but unfortunately the anime doesn't have a lot of them. So Rin's stunt the other day had gotten the interest of a few people. First is Suzuri, a girl who's a big fan of Rin. She followed her during her ballet days, and after watching her make that gracious jump, is now an even bigger Rin glazer. The other is Tamayo, as well as the man who came to her rescue, Okakura, who is actually the supervisor of the Rideback club. They both see a lot of potential in Rin, seeing as for the first time ever she was able to make such a jump, on Fuego no less, something that is near impossible for a complete newbie. But what exactly they have planned for her is unknown for now. Rin finds herself drawn back to the club warehouse, contemplating actually joining the club, and just then she encounters Tamayo. Tamayo is a pretty brash and hot-blooded Rideback pro, as well as captain of the Rideback club, who can tell why Rin is here again. She knows Rin craves to ride again and challenges her to a race right off the bat. The terms if Rin is able to beat her, she'll be given full access to ride Fuego whenever she wants, but if she loses, she'll have to become Tamayo's servant. She doesn't even give Rin the opportunity to accept or decline, and sets their date 1 week from now before driving off. But wait, a pro going up against someone who has only ridden once seems kind of unfair, doesn't it? Well, Tamayo does offer her a handicap, but before we can get to see the race, there are some things going on in the background. The current state of the world of Rideback is one that's got a lot of political tensions going on. Every now and then, we the audience are treated to news updates on the current political landscape, as well as the rising dangers in the world. For the most part, these updates are relegated to the background, but will slowly become more and more prominent in the story. From the news updates, we're informed of a terrorist group called the BMA who have been launching attacks on GGP bases using weaponized Ridebacks no less. It is also through these updates that we are introduced to two fairly important men, Ryunosuke and Nanpu Kataoka, Tamayo's older brother and father respectively, her brother being a police chief and her father being a pretty well-known politician. They both discuss the current state of the world and how these terrorists are simply playing into the GGP's hands. The terrorists' use of Ridebacks gives the GGP the perfect excuse to roll out their own special Rideback police force called the White Riders and force them into Japan's law enforcement as a way to subtly control things, something a lot of the general public is against. On the other side of things, we're introduced to Kenji, Rin's younger brother. He's a high school kid obsessed with Ridebacks. He will be pretty important later. So it's the day of the race. Initially everyone is convinced Rin isn't going to show up, but she actually does, brimming with determination to show Tamayo what she's made of, even though she's only ridden once. Their race will take place on campus grounds, Tamayo's handicap being that if Rin can complete 3 laps before Tamayo can complete 4, she wins. But before they start the race though, they have a test run to familiarize themselves with the track. In this test run, Tamayo drops a read on Rin's character. She sees Rin as someone just like her, a person who can't say no to a challenge, who likes the thrill of the race, but Rin refutes her, saying that she's only here to see what Tamayo's skills are like and admits to not being impressed. Plus, she also wants to see if she can experience that same fire she had during her first ride. This gets Tamayo heated and changes the conditions of her win. If Rin can finish 2 laps instead of 3, she wins. Their race starts proper and it goes about as you'd expect. Rin is having trouble keeping up at first but slowly eases into it. Unfortunately, she gets a bit too overzealous, thinking she can actually beat a pro and ends up going off track, crashing into a lake. But that doesn't stop Rin, she gets even more fired up and actually starts to prove to be a challenge for Tamayo. The race gets intense with Rin getting to show off her experience with ballet while riding, performing quite the gracious jump that leaves Tamayo in awe. But this moment of distraction makes her notice a kitten on the road a little too late, hitting the brakes causing her to crash, bringing their race to an abrupt end. Tamayo wakes up on a hospital bed, surrounded by all the other members of the club. Acknowledging Rin's skills, she doesn't waste time and immediately opts to sign Rin up for an upcoming Rideback Nationals. And her training begins tomorrow. 2 weeks pass and during those days, Rin had been training non-stop, with the Rideback Nationals happening the next day. Unfortunately, Rin won't be able to ride the Fuego for the race because it's not exactly race legal due to all the modifications it's got. So in the meantime, she'll be working with another vehicle called the Balin. She's quite bummed out about it but doesn't linger on it for too long and is ready to give the race her best. Before we get to experience the race though, we're treated to more political stuff. The GGP has just assigned itself a new soon-to-be commander, Romanov Kallenberg, who will be serving as the anime's main antagonist. He's just arrived in Japan for his inauguration in the coming weeks and plans to fully enact his plan of integrating his own private law enforcement, the White Riders, into Japan. This has put him under the direct sight of Ryunosuke, who is trying to not only look into the shady dealings of the GGP, but also find a way to prevent the White Riders from actually becoming a thing. Their story will be something of a watered down game of cat and mouse. Alright, let's get back to our main character. Just before the race actually kicks off, the racers, like last time, are given a chance to test run the course before the real thing actually begins. Rin doesn't seem to be doing all that well with the Balon. She's having struggles actually controlling the vehicle, which is severely hindering her capabilities. So Haruki gives the machine a slight adjustment to its OS to help her out a bit. Ridebacks are equipped with an AI to aid riders. Think of it as a guidance system. Why Rin was able to handle the Fuego and make all those sorts of moves was cause its settings were done in a way where a lot of the limiters were taking off, giving the rider more control. The Balon on the other hand is a bit too handholdy for Rin to actually be comfortable with, but with the adjustments made, she's able to handle it much better. The race finally kicks off, with Rin performing a lot better than she did during the test run. Though the Balon isn't exactly her ideal machine, she's able to really get into gear and gets a bit too overzealous again with racing, making it all the way to the top 5. But Okakura, who's been watching, is able to immediately tell what adjustments were made to the Balon and causing to have her withdraw from the race because of the potential risks she could get into. Rin though is absolutely crushing the competition, but just as she's about to make it to 3rd place, the Balon's engine gives out, causing her to slide off the track and crash, effectively putting her out of the race. Turns out the Balon just couldn't keep up with Rin's demands, not in the way the Fuego could. She pushed it a bit too far, which led to the engine blowing out. But it isn't all gloom for the Rideback Club, as Tamayo is able to bag 1st place in the race, making this her 2nd win 2 years in a row. The day ends with the crew celebrating, however Rin isn't with them at that moment but instead took the Fuego out for a ride. It's there she's met by Okakura, who can't help but ask her why, on the day the Fuego malfunctioned, didn't she just hit the brakes but instead took the jump. Rin responds that she's not sure, but in that moment she felt like she could trust Fuego with her life. Okakura doesn't respond because deep down, he can kind of relate. He won't admit it, but he and Rin are kind of the same. They're both people who enjoy the excitements that come with ridebacks. Alright people, 3 episodes in and so far things have been kind of tame and almost slice of lifey. It leads you to believe that this is all there is to the series, but episode 4 is where everything changes. No longer are we watching the story of a girl falling in love with a new sport and discovering a passion for it. That part is dead and gone, and in its place is a story about a girl fighting for her life, caught up in terrorist activities and government conspiracies. It's an incredibly drastic and wild turn that surprisingly handles the transition really well, though with a few hiccups here and there. So prepare yourself cause things are about to get intense. It is now the weekend with the crew not really having much to do. Rin wanted to take the Fuego out for a ride but comes to find out that both it and the Balon are heading out for repairs, so she along with Suzuri decide to hitch a ride to the mall to meet up with her friend Shoko. This also happens to be the same day Romanov's inauguration into Supreme Commander is happening, which is causing major traffic. At the same time, we're introduced to a new character. Her name is Yoda, a journalist attending a press conference unveiling the new White Riders. But things don't get to stay normal for long. Multiple locations in the city are hit with explosions, one of them being the very mall Shoko is at. The BMA are making their move, and they chose today of all days because it's Romanov's inauguration. This is their stance against him. The crew on the other hand can only stand and watch from a distance as the city goes up in smoke. Rin, worried for the safety of her friend, unable to reach her, makes the bold move to take the Fuego out and go save Shoko herself. Not taking no for an answer and filled with determination to save her friend, she zooms off. It doesn't take long for her to get into the mall, which has now been blocked out by the GGP. She tries to get them to let her through but they don't budge, so she forces her way through. Crashing through the mall, she's able to find Shoko and make a hasty escape out of there, falling under fire from both the BMA and the GGP. This scene is tense and it gets even worse as she makes her way out of the mall, only to be met with a military blockade. Now you think the smart thing for her to do would be to stop right there, surrender and explain herself, right? Nope, she keeps riding and somehow she's able to put hundreds of trained military professionals to shame, avoiding all their gunfire. She just keeps going, not feeling an ounce of anxiety or fear. Hell, she's not even worried about being labeled a terrorist. Right now, the only thing on her mind is how connected she feels to Fuego at this very moment. But this high doesn't last for long. She soon gets cornered at a bridge, and just as it looks like all hope is lost, a voice calls out to her to jump, and as she looks to her side, she sees a missile fired off in her direction. Without a moment of hesitation, she leaps off the bridge, brushing paths with the missile that hits a helicopter, giving her a good enough distraction to escape. In that moment, she sees sparkles. She feels the same way she felt when she made that leap with Fuego on her first ever run. This rush, this sensation, it makes her heart race. She's able to make it to safety, which is when she encounters a strange silver-haired man. He seems to know all about the Fuego. He says some rather cryptic stuff, mentioning how Fuego is a rare and special vehicle that has the ability to choose its rider, and it looks like Rin was chosen. He doesn't elaborate any further and disappears. Great, is this set up to some deeper sci-fi elements in the series? Are there more to Ridebacks than we're initially led to believe? Well, I can't really confirm or deny that. On one hand, I want to believe that the conversation they had was all metaphorical. Maybe the sparkles she saw when she made that jump was just a representation of the excitement she was feeling. Maybe she was literally experiencing some new sci-fi phenomenon like some kind of new type. I heavily lean towards the former because it feels really out of place if the series just now decided to go all in with the sci-fi stuff as well as starting to get political. I mean, it could work, but for a series that is mostly grounded in reality, it would make things really odd. So the crew are able to make it back to the club warehouse safely, and no doubt, Okakura is furious about the shit they just pulled. He suspends club activities and orders them to lay low for a while until things blow over. He also says he will be disposing of the Fuego, much to Rin's dismay. We're now experiencing the aftermath of the terrorist attack. It's all the news has been talking about, but surprisingly enough, there has been no mention of Rin's actions whatsoever. This is thanks to the GGP specifically withholding that information. You can probably tell that they want to spin the info around and claim that was a terrorist who broke through the blockade, all in an attempt to push their White Rider agenda. But the information doesn't stay hidden for too long. The journalist duo from before were actually there on the scene and were able to get some good shots of her. So, out of journalistic integrity, they get the news out there and prove that the person on the Rideback was not a terrorist, but a civilian. Though there weren't any good shots of her face, so she's referred to as the mysterious Rideback girl. But she won't remain mysterious for too long as the GGP and the police have already confirmed her identity, and to make it worse for her, so have the terrorist group. Things are about to get a lot more dangerous for Rin. It's the calm before the storm. Despite the fact that Rin has been identified, no moves have been made on her yet. Save for the journalist duo, Yoda already on the scene. Meanwhile, Kenji, who's been getting into the wrong crowd lately, has found himself in the midst of a bunch of hooligans who have gotten their hands on some suspiciously new Ridebacks. These thugs were paid to simply use these machines to make a lot of noise later that night. Kenji is a bit suspicious about the nature in which these vehicles were acquired, but immediately caves to the peer pressure and doesn't think about it any longer. At the same time, Rin meets up with Shoko on the beach. They try to reminisce about their high school days of just goofing around, but Shoko can see right through her. She can see just how worried and guilty Rin feels about the whole thing. She felt responsible for making her go through all of that, but Shoko reassures her that everything is fine and she doesn't blame Rin for it. The two don't spend too long with each other before Shoko has to return home, leaving Rin all alone and giving Yoda, who had been watching Rin all this time, the perfect opportunity to approach her. Just as she's about to have a talk with her, they get interrupted by the sound of engines. That gang have begun to make their move, and zoom past them, and in an instant, Rin is able to catch a glimpse of her brother. Knowing this is nothing but bad news, she gives chase on foot but isn't able to catch up. Just then, Yoda pulls up with her car and offers her a ride. They try to keep up but are blocked off by the police. It's very suspicious how quick the police were already on the scene setting up blockades when it's only been like 10 minutes. The GGP is also there, which means this was a setup. These thugs were doomed from the start and Kenji is one of them. Just then, two White Riders appear out of nowhere and make quick work of the thugs, actually killing a few of them without hesitation. Kenji is all that's left, but it doesn't take long before he's subdued too. The White Riders aren't just satisfied with knocking him out, they intend to end him permanently. And just as they're about to, Rin picks up one of the fallen Ridebacks, swoops in and absolutely embarrasses the White Riders. Even without the fuego, her agility is no joke. I don't know, man, if I, an officer trained specifically for this kind of thing, got shown up like this, I'd quit on the spot. Unfortunately, Rin doesn't get to make another daring escape this time around. She's cornered and swiftly captured. We are then shown just how corrupt the GGP are. Kenji is being tortured by them in order to get him to admit to committing the crime of killing one of the gang members the White Riders had killed, and Rin is forced to watch. But he doesn't budge. That is until they use Rin as hostage. Not wanting to see his sister suffer, he admits to the crime. Rin, however, is put in a cell and Kenji is taken away, seemingly jailed for life. The news has also gotten a lot of other governments around the world interested in getting their hands on White Riders. However, the people of Japan are still strongly against them. Meanwhile, Ryunosuke confronts Romanov regarding Rin's case. He's not too pleased with the fact that Rin will be transferred to a GGP facility and be detained indefinitely without his input. Romanov doesn't care. He's the one in charge after all, but as a viewer, you can't help but think he has special plans for her. And how exactly is Rin doing during all of this? Well, not great. While in her cell, she can't help but think about her mother, wondering if she would have done the same thing, risking her life to save the people she cared about. But alas, she cannot get an answer from her. She falls asleep, dreaming of the mysterious man who saved her that day of the terrorist attack. He talks about her strength, how she was chosen to fight and rip her enemies apart. Perhaps there's a side of her that wants more of that. A side of her that wants to show the world what she's really capable of. To show off that strength of hers. But in the end, Rin is just a normal girl. A normal girl who's tired of all of this. Okakura arrives at the junkyard with Tamayo right behind him. He opens up a storage container and hands her a key. That key belonging to Fuego, the very machine he claimed to have scrapped. They don't really talk all that much. All he does is tell her to do what she has to do while he goes on to meet an old acquaintance. The day of Rin's transfer to GGP custody is here and she can't help but feel indifferent about everything happening. On the way there, the truck she's being held in gets attacked by BMA terrorists. We aren't shown exactly what happens, but from the sounds we're treated to, it was quite a bloody battle. Even while hearing everything happening outside, she can't bring herself to really care. She's tired of all this terrorism stuff and just wants it all to end. She doesn't want anything to do with this anymore. But unfortunately she gets taken. The reason they actually abducted her was so that they could use her as bait to draw Okakura to them. The BMA come for him, calling him the Goblin. He knew that was their plan all along, and he willingly goes along with them. While he makes his way to their hideout where Rin is being held, she, on the other hand, comes face to face with the silver-haired man from before. His name? Kiefer. He introduces himself but doesn't stay for long. He's only there to assure her that she is in safe hands and informs her that Okakura will be here to get her soon. But before he leaves, he tells her he knows the exact kind of person she is. He knows that in both those cases when she hopped on a rideback to save the people dear to her, she wasn't really doing it for them, but did it for Fuego. She was out there putting her life on the line just to experience the thrill of it. He knows this well because he too is the same. This was something Rin was struggling to accept about herself, but actually hearing someone say it to her face gives her a lot to think about. While this is all going on, there's a game of cat and mouse taking place between the GGP and the terrorists. They've been following Okakura all this time and believe he has led them to the terrorist base and prepared to launch an attack on them, but turns out this was a trap set by the BMA who blew up the place to get one up on the GGP. But this lets them get the location of the real hideout. Back at the hideout, Rin had been wandering around when she comes across two ridebacks that were just sitting out in the open. While she's a bit curious about them, she still has her reservations. That is until Kiefer shows up again and plays to that side of her she's been trying to deny. So with very little effort, he's able to convince her to take one out on a spin. And while she still hesitates, Kiefer shows her just what these ridebacks are capable of. They run on the same OS as Fuego after all. She's enamored. With the fire lit in her, she joins him. What follows is what might be the best sequence in the anime. The two riders move in perfect sync, their ridebacks an extension of themselves. They mirror each other's every move, proving that they truly are both the same. Chat? Is this Riz? Unfortunately, their fun time is short-lived as the moment they stop, the GGP pull up ready to smoke the place out, so all hell breaks loose. Thankfully, Okakura is able to get to Rin just in time and escape in one piece. Surprisingly enough, the BMA are able to push back the GGP and come out victorious in their skirmish, mostly thanks to Kiefer who carried that fight. And Romanov is incredibly furious about this. He has a personal vendetta with both Kiefer and Okakura. Turns out, during the war 10 years ago that led to the GGP gaining the power they currently have, Romanov, Kiefer, and Okakura were all part of the squad that was responsible for taking down most of the forces of the global powers. But after that, the squad disbanded. Okakura went on to live a simple life while Kiefer and Romanov went on to have some serious bad blood. So this beef has a lot more personal stakes between Kiefer and Romanov, both wanting to end the other because of how different the other has become. Okakura is able to take Rin to a safe place, that being one of the many villas owned by Tamayo's dad. They were all able to lay low for a couple of days, and it's in these moments that Rin and Tamayo have a moment to talk. Rin asks why it is Tamayo took up Ridebacks in the first place, to which she responds that she only did so because of the rocky relationship she has with her father. She grew up kind of neglected and only really got his attention when it was her birthday, so on one of her birthdays she asked for a Rideback. He didn't like that but ended up getting it for her. She didn't really want it and only asked for it out of spite. But when she got around to actually riding it, she ended up falling in love with it and has been a rider ever since. This response helps Rin finally understand herself and her relationship with Ridebacks. When she hopped on that Fuego, it felt like an extension of herself, and the more she rode it, the more it felt like a friend to her. But she has come to realize that she was only lying to herself. Fuego was just a replacement for her, a new way for her to fill the void that was left when she injured her leg and couldn't dance anymore. She didn't love Ridebacks the way she loved ballet. She only saw them as an avenue to experience the world she had long given up on. It wasn't healthy. So she decides when this is all over, she's going to quit Ridebacks. However, she's not sure she'll take up ballet again. And to see if she actually sticks to her decision later on, she stumbles into the basement of the villa and sees Fuego. And in that instant, all the memories she had come flooding in. She's glad it wasn't destroyed, and in that moment, it looks as though she's about to hop on and ride again, but she stops herself. She's made up her mind and doesn't want to look back. Meanwhile, tensions around the country are rising. The public is increasingly getting more agitated with the White Riders and have been protesting all over. The Rideback Club, who we haven't seen in a while, have caught wind of this, and while they're all anxious about Rin's current situation and the state of the country, they don't just want to sit around and do nothing. So they all decide to join in on the protests. But before they do, Tamayo shows up to give them an update, reassuring them that Rin is in safe hands with her family's lawyers looking to get her sorted out. Looks like things are finally looking up for the crew. The protest comes the next day. The Rideback Club are on the scene ready to defend their love for Ridebacks and disdain for the GGP. Once there, Tsuzuri can't help but reminisce about Rin's ballet days. This is when she admits that she would much rather have Rin continue dancing instead of leaping around in a Rideback, a sentiment the other members echo. They too believe that dancing is where Rin's heart really lies and can understand why she did quit after the injury. They're all on board with wanting to tell Rin to take up dancing again, though Tsuzuri is a bit hesitant because she doesn't want to hurt her feelings. But thanks to some pep talk from the others, she makes up her mind to tell her. But their conversation gets cut when some random bystander notices Tsuzuri and mistakes her for the mysterious Rideback girl, thanks to the helmet she's wearing. The dude doesn't wait to get a response from her before announcing to the rest of the protesters that the Rideback girl is here. The crowd immediately swarms her with excitement, and she gets carried away and goes along with them. Meanwhile, as all this is going on, Rin and Tamayo have snuck their way back into the city and plan to link up with the club to say hi. They had to leave the villa because they were there for too long and the cops could show up at any moment. I can't even begin to explain how bad of an idea this is. Their reasoning behind this is that the best way to hide is in plain sight. But did they just forget that the city has a lot of surveillance that could easily pinpoint them if needed? Things only get worse from there. Who would have guessed? Tsuzuri assuming the identity of a person who had been labeled as a criminal would lead to said law enforcement moving in on her. And instead of her to come clean right there and show she's not the Rideback girl, she runs away! And as she does, she's able to catch a glimpse of Rin and Tamayo on a train. She calls out to them, screaming out her desires to want to see Rin dancing again. With the cops closing in on her, she doesn't falter. She herself is trying to show Rin just how much she's improved and aims to go for a jump, the same way Rin did in episode 1. And just as she's about to leap, a cop shows up out of nowhere and with one clean swoop, knocks her head right off, killing her instantly. A traumatizing scene for everyone who witnessed it. Tsuzuri's death was a huge shock and frankly cruel in an ironic way. Out of everyone involved, Suzuri might have been the one who had the least stakes in the story. She was just an excited girl who wanted to get close to her idol. The only reason she picked up Ridebacks in the first place was because of Rin, and she paid the ultimate price for it. Her death was one that caught me off guard at first, but looking back at the episode, her death flags were there, from the suspicious amount of screen time she was getting to suddenly getting all sentimental. Hell, she was even waving a literal flag. It's unfortunate what happened to her, but it only serves to prove how extreme the GGP are, and their methods are only going to get worse from here. Cause behind the scenes, they're working on and are about to release some new machines called grimoires, which are basically unmanned rideback drones. We're going full sci-fi now. But it also turns out that not everyone is on board with what Romanov is doing. It appears that a few people in the GGP want him gone, his assistant being one of them. She secretly meets up with Ryunosuke in an attempt to give him dirt on Romanov and get him to comply using blackmail, but the man is a good dude who plays by the rules and turns her down. If he's going to do this, he'll do it properly. It's the day after the protest tragedy. Rin and Tamayo are once again taking shelter in another BMA hideout. The BMA who are prepping to launch their final attack on the GGP the following day. Looks like we're reaching the climax of this story. Rin is no doubt shaken by everything that has happened. This has been a really hard time for her. I think all this happened in the span of like a couple of weeks actually. So in front of Tamayo, she finally breaks down. She blames herself for everything that's happened. She laments about how life is always taking things away from her, robbing her of her dreams. She's tired of always having to lose those things that bring her joy. First it was her mother, then ballet, and now ridebacks. She doesn't care if she goes on to live a boring life, she just wants to have something to believe in, something to bring her joy. I found the scene really relatable. If you're someone who struggled through life trying to find something to be passionate about, only for one thing or the other to get in the way of you fully experiencing that thing, you'll be able to understand her frustrations. While she's at this point in her life because of her extreme actions and thrill-seeking nature, I can't really fault her for this because of the corrupt system that forced her hand. She's very much a victim of the government, an innocent girl who gets taken advantage of by both sides to push their agenda. So you can't blame her for being tired of all of it. It's the day of the final battle between the BMA and the GGP. Both sides have begun mobilizing, preparing for an all-or-nothing fight. But the GGP have another thing up their sleeve. They're using this fight to soft launch their grimoires, which are making their way to the BMA hideout, the very one Rin and Tamayo are in. As the girls make their way to the rooftop, which has a chopper waiting to take them to safety, Rin begins to reminisce about her time with Ridebacks and flashes back to the time she spent with her mother. Her mother's words telling her to always trust her heart and let it guide her, that if she does, the stage will answer back in kind. These words resonate with her, and just at the last minute, she chooses not to go with the chopper, saying that there's something she has to do. Tamayo, understanding, follows suit. And lucky for them too, because just as they leave, the chopper blows up. The grimoires have arrived on the scene, and they quickly lay waste to everyone they set their eyes on. One comes across Tamayo, and just as it's about to attack, Rin saves her with the fuego, giving the two the opportunity to escape. Meanwhile, the BMA are actually able to catch the GGP by surprise, even raining down missiles on them. Their success also thanks to Okakura, who was able to hack their systems and give them a fighting chance. Even with the presence of the grimoires, the BMA are able to still hold their ground and actually overwhelm the GGP. Rin and Tamayo are on the run from the grimoires, but in order to protect Tamayo, whose ride was damaged, Rin opts to draw the attention of the robots away from her. As she zooms through the city, once again, she notes that she doesn't feel an ounce of fear in her. She feels perfectly in sync with Fuego and now understands why she was so captivated by this machine specifically. They both bring out each other's true beauty. Unfortunately, she gets cut off and is knocked off the vehicle by the grimoires. Just as it looks like she's about to be taken in, Okakura comes in just in time to save her. He wants her to get far away from here, but Rin refuses. She claims there's something she absolutely needs to finish, and as she says that, she hops on Fuego, this time more determined than ever. While all this is going on, Romanov has been losing his shit because of the current state of the battle. But just then, he gets a call from HQ with orders telling him to call for a ceasefire and return to their headquarters. Looks like he isn't top of the food chain after all. Turns out that info his assistant wanted Ryunosuke to leak ended up getting out there regardless, which resulted in a bunch of GGP executives being removed from office. As Romanov makes his way to a chopper ready to take him out of the base up in flames, he's stopped by Kiefer. The two are finally going to settle their bad blood. Or they would if his assistant didn't third party and take him out herself, putting an end to his reign of terror. Kind of anticlimactic, to be honest. Back to Rin. She's still on the move, but where is she going? To the very park Suzuri was killed. She arrives surrounded by more robots and begs for Fuego to help her one last time, to help her light her own stage. With the whole country watching, she begins her performance. She and Fuego move as one, effortlessly weaving through the robots and taking them down one by one. But she isn't fighting them, no. She's dancing. A performance so elegant they repeat this cut 2 more times. But we're not sure how long her dance will be. Fuego is slowly starting to wear down because of the damage it took earlier and falls to its knees. Rin begs for it to get up. They aren't done, they just need to go a little bit longer. And Fuego does respond in that moment that feels like the ride itself has come alive. It reaches out its arm, reaching for the very same light Rin had been chasing. And just like that, the machine stands up. She continues to dance, absolutely captivating everyone watching. Her gracious, gravity-defying leaps are a sight to behold. This performance is all for Suzuri. And as she lands from her final leap, Fuego goes off, bringing an end to her performance. With only a few minutes left on the final episode, we're shown the changes following the aftermath of Romanov's actions. The GGP have opted for a new system of government, one where they are no longer involved with making government decisions or policies and will now refer to local authorities instead, appointing Tamayu's father as Secretary General to oversee it all. Rin's brother Kenji was able to get out of jail, and the Rideback Club are still doing their thing. As for Rin, it looks like everything is going well with her. As we see her again, with a smile on her face, she softly declares that she's back, as the series closes on a shot of ballet shoes, symbolizing her true return. And that's Rideback. Rideback was an anime that I believed handled its drastic change pretty well, though at the cost of sacrificing a lot of other things, the characters being at the forefront. The first 3 episodes focus on the slice of life aspects, luring you in before pulling the rug from under you in a way that would catch a lot of people off guard and push them away from the series. Judging this series using the 3-episode rule would definitely not work. It was pretty jarring watching the series do a complete 180 becoming a politically charged story, when in reality a lot of the people had gotten comfortable with the first couple of episodes, so I honestly would not blame anyone if they dropped this series after episode 4. Because not only is that when the plot actually begins to happen, it's also when we really get to explore Rin's character. But at the same time, even if you did decide to stick around for the rest of the anime, it'd be hard to actually stay, because the anime can get pretty boring sometimes. Like most scenes that had the characters standing around talking felt like they dragged on more than they needed to, even more so when they were talking about politics. Politics, mind you, that if it wasn't fed to us through government officials sitting around discussing, was delivered through us through news updates that got old pretty fast. If you're someone who generally doesn't like politics, especially in your media, then this anime is definitely not for you. It's a shame though, the anime did have a lot of potential, but in my opinion, it never does get to reach it. There is so much to be had in the world building, unfortunately the anime is never able to fully realize it. You could get your fix from the manga, which is vastly different from the anime, but unless you can read Japanese, don't bother because there isn't an official English translation out there. There was a fan translation, but that only covered volume 1, so yeah, the series is really underground. But if I've at least made you slightly more interested in looking into it, go ahead. But for me, this is where I end this video. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I'm trying to make it to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But as always, this has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.